Hello, I'm Kate,
And I'm Austin.
and we are going to talk a little bit today about our residential teacher training. We're hosting a 300-hour residential teacher training up at the Omega Institute up in Rhinebeck, New York, July the 28th through August the 25th of 2024. So I wanted to ask Austin, what can people expect on like a daily basis during a 300-hour, almost month-long teacher training? It's like, what are you going to do during the day? So maybe how you can talk a little bit today about like, where do we start?
Well,
How does each day start?
first you have to accept that like 300 hours is a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that like when you do a teacher training, that your time should be spent with facilitators. Like I'm really against teacher trainings that kind of like do 100 hours with facilitators and then just tell students that are taking your teacher training to go to the classes at your studio. Like I'm so against that. So because it's not a teaching process. Then they're just students like they regularly are. So we have a full day, week, month planned out for the students who are going to come to the 300-hour teacher training, and you will be doing it. I think it actually mathematically averages out to like 320 hours in total.
So pick a random day of the week.
Sure.
What time does like the day start?
So the day starts every morning. The Mega Institute is a wonderful institute. They have a wonderful, huge kitchen where you will start out with your breakfast, a nice vegetarian, vegan breakfast. They have many options, and that's how the day will start. Our first get together will actually be the study of mantra.
And what happens in that? What will we be doing for that period?
So it's a lecture situation. We'll come in, we'll sit down, we'll chant the mantra. We will break it down word for word. Then there'll be a little discourse about the mantra, explaining the mantra. Maybe it can sometimes involve storytelling, or it can also involve like concepts and ideas of philosophy. But the mantra that we practice in the morning and learn in the morning will kind of guide us for that whole day. It kind of gives us the beginning arc for the whole day. So after we have the discourse, we will then sit around and we will chant the mantra again, and each person in the room at some point will lead the mantra so that you become comfortable singing it and actually getting the other students to do a call and response with you. Then from there, the mantra will lead us into a meditation. We'll meditate on the mantra. After the meditation, we're going to start meditation out at 15 minutes, and each day add a minute to the meditation time. So by the time we get to the last, I think, week and a half, we're doing 30-minute meditation.
Oh, that's great. And it's nice that you have time to get there, because it's a lot. 30 minutes sounds like nothing, but it's a long time.
And it's a long time
when you're just sitting
and if you're not used to meditating for that length of time. After that, we will conduct an Urban Sadhu Yoga open class. Each day will be led by one of the different facilitators, myself, Kate, or Catherine Miranda, who's going to be our other co-facilitator. So that will be a live interaction.
And it's nice that you get a different sort of instructor every day. So it's not just the same practice every day. There's elements of the same, I imagine.
Yes.
But it's not, you're getting a different perspective, a different class, a different physical experience every day.
I think this is really important. Like one of the things that happened at my teacher training and at your teacher training, there was a pre-recorded class that was done every day. There were 2 recorded classes. You did these balancing asanas the first half, and the second half you did the back bending asanas. The class was focused on back bending, and it was very mechanical. And so we all 3 teach from the same methodology. But we teach very differently, and so you actually get the opportunity over the course of 28 days to see 3 different teachers over and over and over again teach the same methodology, all approaching their class slightly different and what makes that person unique, and that a method does not mean mechanical.
Right.
Methodology just means that there is some guidelines that just kind of put everything into a basket.
Right. There's principles, there's technique. Those are the things that are pervasive.
Yes.
But within that, with practice, with time, with experience, I think it's really valuable that they get to see 3 teachers who have embodied the methodology
Yes.
and then can relate it and instruct it in your own way. Because that's, to me, what makes the best sort of teacher. Someone who is constantly studying, they ingest that information and figure out the best vehicle as within their own self to translate and share that information.
Absolutely. So after the open class, which will be a 90-minute class, an hour, 35 minutes, we will have what's called Asana Lab. An Asana Lab is time where we come together in a workshop setting, and it'll be a 2-hour Asana Lab. And we really look at like asana alignment. We look at like hands-on assist. We look at like prop usage. We look at like verbiage. We look at like how to like link an asana into a sequence, maybe come out of an asana, go into another asana, how you can build upon an asana. And each day will be a different focus. So we will start with like sun salutations, and then the next day we will go to standing asanas, and then the next day we'll go to balancing asanas, and then forward folds and twists and back bends, inversions, on and on and on. And that will be that time that like the student can really stop us and ask us like, what do you mean, activate your quadriceps?
Yeah.
Or
How would I use this prop here?
Or lift up at your pelvic floor, or how do I use this belt in an upward bow? Why are you giving me 3 belts for upward bow and want me to figure out how to use it? So that's that time's like really so valuable for people in their own personal yoga asana practice, but also as a teaching tool, because I found a lot of times what happens is sometimes the person who wants to be a yoga teacher may come to the yoga mat and things are kind of easy for them. And what you have to have is a skill set as a yoga teacher. Like, how am I going to help the person that's new to yoga, that's really struggling? How can I bring in a prop or an assist or an alignment cue to help them experience the yoga asana on a different level?
So working with different bodies other than your own.
Yes.
And seeing it in real time, being able to ask questions in real time about the assist, the structure of the asana, how you can modify it for different sort of body types or injuries, etc. And so after that, after the Asana Lab, I imagine that's a pretty physical morning. We'll break, have a little lunch break.
A little lunch.
And then after that, what happens between lunch and then dinner?
So after you have a nice lunch, you'll come back and we'll have a specific time for lectures. This is where we'll study yoga shastras. Shastra means rules or books or scripture. It could be in a lot of different things. Sanskrit's very interesting like that. A Sanskrit word could have multiple level meanings. But it's the time we'll study things like Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, or we'll study Hatha Yoga Pradipika, or we'll study the Bhagavad Gita, or we'll study the Shava Sutras, Vasudutta. And we'll really look at the philosophy and the psychology behind the yoga practice. So it won't be a physical practice, it'll be an intellectual practice.
Jnana yoga.
Jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge.
And then so we have our lectures in the afternoon. Do they get to do any practical teaching throughout the day? Yeah.
Later in the late afternoon, then there'll be small group teachings. And this is where, and we'll break this very much up like the Asana Lab. It will kind of mirror the Asana Lab. So if we study an Asana Lab, Surya Namaskars, then in small group teachings, we will encourage, that's what we will be teaching in the small group teachings. And then at the same time, we're going to help guide you into developing and designing your own Urban Sadhu Yoga open class with a template assistant, the bija sequence, a layout that will just kind of help guide you on how to start to design your own class and structure a class. By the end of the month, they should have a class that they can teach each other.
That's excellent. And so then we'll take our little evening break, and then we have dinner, and then we have what's called a satsang. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So in the late evening, we'll get back together after dinner, and we'll have what's called satsang. Satsang is a Sanskrit word that means gathering of good company, association with good company. And this is really to dive deeper into the spiritual, more esoteric practices of the yoga tradition. Some nights it will be like lecture. Other nights I've planned a lot of films. We're going to bring in some films. This was something interesting that happened when we first started doing yoga teacher trainings. I would start talking about a historical figure. And when I say historical figure, I mean, they may still be alive, but somebody who was very prominent in the yoga world. And a lot of times I would find that the younger generation would say, who is that? They didn't know who those people were. And so I decided to try to find films that if we mention Ram Dass, that all of a sudden, he's passed away now, but if you aren't familiar with his teachings, it gives you some context. And so that's that time we're going to use to share a lot of these spiritual traditions to help people kind of bridge a gap, a generational gap I see within the yoga tradition, starting from all the way, really not just the 1960s, but from the turn of the century when Swami Vivekananda came to America and started teaching these very esoteric teachings of Vedanta. And people have kind of lost that context. Yeah. So even though the day will probably end around 10:30 every day. 10:30. Yeah.
So though it's a long day, right? There's planned breaks, obviously, but also there's a nice variety of physical, mental. You have a little bit of rest. You have a little bit of discussion, community. So it's you're not just sitting for hours and hours and hours on end.
Or not just
practicing
asana.
Or you're not just moving. Yeah, there's a structure to the day that makes it, while challenging, very, very doable. Very, very doable.
And I think that also the beautiful thing is that we're in the context of, this is all happening within the context of being at Omega Institute, which is like being at a yoga ashram.
It's beautiful. You're in the middle of the woods. The grounds are spectacular. You really have the space to learn and process and practice this information in a real refuge. I think.
And it's just so like when you have that kind of environment that's so holistic, and you're only focused on yoga, it's actually, the schedule isn't so daunting because that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
You're only there for that, and it's all supporting you. There'll be like a weekend off. I want to say that there is like a weekend off. Dev Panaik is one of our guest teachers, and he's going to be doing a lecture at Omega Institute called How Mythology Can Expand Your Mind. And
that'll be great.
The students are going to be able to go to his event, which would be a Friday evening, full day Saturday, half day Sunday. So that weekend, they really kind of get off to just go to his event, be around him, listen to what he has to say. And I think that's going to be so valid because so much of what we teach in yoga is based upon mythology.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be able to help you understand how to take yoga mythology and apply it in much deeper way than some of the very shallow, superficial ways
Right.
that sometimes you see it expressed within Western yoga.
Right. Well, this sounds spectacular. I'm really excited because we have that scheduled too.
Yeah,
So we're going
we're
through
doing
it with you.
you.
So I'm really excited to just be there and experience it from the facilitation side. And
Yeah.
it's going to be really, really special.
Yeah.
So I hope you all join us. It's July 28th through August 25th, 2024 at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. If you have any sort of questions or want to learn more, you can go to eomega.org or urbansadhuyoga.com.